Hey folks, it's Dr. Brenda. I am back with another woman profile. Today I am very pleased to introduce Sara Lohse to you. Sara is a director of marketing, but also describes herself as an advisor. So welcome, Sara. We're so glad to have you here.
Thank you, Dr. Brenda. I'm so glad to be here.
So give us a little bit of background as to who you are and what you're about.
Yeah, well, I am 25. I'm the director of marketing for a financial advising firm. I work remote. I actually live in Austin, Texas, which is my fourth state so far. I grew up in New York, moved to Maryland for about 6 years, did a little time in Florida between that, just kind of chasing a dream down there. And then I moved to Texas about a year ago, and I've been here living just me and my dog for about a year now.
So you've, in reading the description, you've taken some gutsy moves. So, you graduated from college?
I did. I graduated at 21 from Towson University.
And then
With
you went into a company. You kind of tried the 9 to 5 thing for a while.
Yes, I was incredibly lucky. I graduated with a job offer, which I was probably the only person I knew that actually managed that. It was a really great experience. I worked as a copywriter, PR writer for a little boutique advertising agency in Baltimore. And I spent about 2 years there starting my career. And I learned from some really awesome women. It was a 100% female company, which, if you know anything about advertising, you know that is incredibly rare. So it was really great to be surrounded by just some awesome women that were really good at what they did. And I learned a lot when I was there. But after 2 years, it was time to move on.
So you went from primarily the East Coast and then shipped to Texas. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I have always loved to travel. My goal is 30 countries by 30, which COVID is kind of messing up for me a little bit. I might have to extend that goal. But yeah, I've always loved to travel, and I kind of noticed that I had been to different countries. I'd done solo trips to Europe. I had done all this stuff, but I hadn't seen basically anything in our country. I had never left the East Coast. Like I said, I grew up in New York, and then I spent 6 years in Maryland and a little time in Florida. But I hadn't left the coast, and I never planned on staying in Maryland. I got my degree there. It was great. And then I basically decided that I was going to apply for jobs all over the world and move anywhere I got hired, which I did, but I got hired about 20 minutes from campus. So I stayed and I did those 2 years there. But I mean, I never saw myself staying in Maryland. And I just had so much more I wanted to see and so much more I wanted to do. And I loved my job and who I worked with, but I started to kind of see that my future wasn't there. It wasn't really aligned with my goals for myself and the growth that I wanted and kind of the autonomy I craved in a position. And I just kind of went for it. I'd always wanted to just up and move and kind of restart. And I was 24 at the time, or about to be 24. And I had no responsibilities. I had no kids, no pets, no boyfriend, and I just did it. So I flew out to Texas, interviewed with a few companies, came back on my 24th birthday, put my 2 weeks notice, and I was down in Texas about 3 weeks later.
So you moved to Texas. Did you have a job offer at that time?
I did. I had gotten 3 offers. I had one in Dallas, one in San Antonio, and one in Austin. They were all very different and they were great opportunities. I just kind of chose which city I wanted the most, and that's kind of how I chose the job. So I ended up in Austin. I was working for a cool company. It seemed like a great opportunity, but it just kind of didn't go as expected, as nothing ever does in life. I ended up in a position that I was kind of in my head. I worked for directly for a CEO, and I was the marketing manager. But there was a lot of kind of disconnect between what I was supposed to be and what he was expecting. It's kind of like when you're being told how to do your job by someone who doesn't really understand your job. And I would try to push like, this is what should happen and this is how we'll get these results. And he's like, don't do that, but get the results anyway. So it was very much a mess. I was there for probably only 5 months, and it wasn't working out. But it was when things don't happen as you planned, it's kind of, I like to think it's for a reason. So when I left my company in Maryland, I'd been working with a financial advisor as a client, and I was ghostwriting for him. And along so well, we did the project so well that when I quit the company in Maryland, he wouldn't let me go. He called the president of the company. He's like, I'm not doing this without her. So kind of figure it out. And they kept me on as a contractor. I could keep writing for him kind of freelance, but through the agency. And he had offered me to write a job description in addition to what I usually did for him. He asked, can you write a job description? I'm hiring a full marketing person. So I wrote it, I gave it to him, and about 30 seconds later, he said, okay, now will you take the job? And I said, no. I was like, I just wrote this. What do you mean, can I take it? I have a job. I moved to Texas for a job. It's their busiest season. It was like a retail company, so it's right before Christmas. I can't just leave. That would be terrible of me. And then about 2 weeks before Christmas, I got let go. And it was a relief. I was miserable. I was having anxiety attacks every time I met with my boss, which is not a good way to live.
No.
So it was a couple weeks after that job offer that they let me go. And that exact day I called him and I said, okay, let's talk. But like I said, he was in Maryland and I had no intention of going back. I moved to Texas. I was like, this is my life now. I love it down here. My dog had just started school, which apparently is a ridiculous reason, but that was the one I had. And I told him I'm not moving back. He'd offered moving costs. He'd offered to buy me out of my lease. Like he was basically willing to move mountains to get me to work for him. And I told him, I was like, I will work for you, but you need to kind of let me do it on my terms. I am not leaving Texas, but let's figure this out. I can fly in when you need me. Like I'll give you like a week every month. I'll fly in. I'll be in the office. When we originally discussed, I was able to negotiate a really good salary, and I was like, give me a pay cut. Like what we talked about starting me here. Let's start me down here, and we'll use that extra money to fly me in. So that'll cover my travel costs, additional expense, and let's see if it works. So that was Friday, and he has 3 other business partners that run the company with him. It's not awesome. So he said, let me meet with them on Monday and I'll have a job offer to you Monday. I said that morning, and he's like, okay, you have 6 months to be, I was a marketing associate. He said, you have 6 months to prove this will work. And within 3 months, I was director of marketing.
Wow. Wow. You know, that takes a lot of courage, especially, I'm going to say, when you're younger, to sort of stand your ground and to say, this is where I'm living, and if you want my services, these are the things that this is how it's going to work. I mean, you took a chance there because they could have said no.
Yeah, and I mean, don't get me wrong, I was terrified. I was trying to sound bold. I was sticking to my guns and that, but I'm just thinking like, if he says no to this, like I just moved across the country, I packed up my life. I don't know anyone here. Like I have a couple friends. I don't have any like business connections. Like, what do I do? So even like he said he would have a job offer to me on Monday, but just that like self-doubt that everyone has, I'm telling myself like, oh, they're not going to go for it. It's not going to work out. I started making my resume. I started sending out applications. And I was just like, what are people going to think about me? Like I did this big move and I was so confident and I was so ready. And then I got fired in less than 6 months and now I'm unemployed. So I was terrified, but also I knew wasn't for me. I knew that wasn't like my end game. And I was well, we're going to see if this works out, and then I'll figure it out from there if it doesn't.
So right now you've got some flexibility in your work schedule. I mean, do you set your hours and do the work that when you want to?
Yeah, so my boss has been awesome. Like I said, just with letting me be remote in general. The company had never allowed remote work. It was not a thing. It wasn't like if you had to be home for the day, you had to take the day off. It wasn't even like, let me take my computer home and just work
Right.
from my kitchen for the day. It wasn't an option. And it scared him. It scared all of them when I was like, okay, well, send me a computer. I'll buy a desk. I'll work from my living room. But I basically I had to just prove myself and over again, just prove that this would work. We were still working with the agency that I came from, a company that he likes to say he stole me from. We were still working with them as our agency of record, and the results that I was getting just month after month basically blew away anything they'd ever done. We were just looking at the numbers from last year, and there were things that they would get 15% open rates on an email. I think it was great, but my first week there, I was getting 50%. Like I increased their numbers so fast, and I was able to prove over and over again kind of why this would work and how it would work. That it got to the point that he changed the rules for me, and this was right before it. So just him knowing that it worked for me gave him the confidence for the rest of the company. So no one got laid off. There was nothing. Basically, we didn't lose a beat. Everyone became working from home, and it worked great. The company thrived.
Yeah.
And then while this was happening, another employee went to them. I got into a master's program in Utah. Can I go and still keep my job? And they're like, why not? Sara did it. So I was able to, and then in doing that, I get to make my own schedule. I get the freedom to make my own decisions. I have complete autonomy in my department. And he's basically, I was told that I just have the longest leash that I need. I don't have to be at my desk from 5. I usually am. Like I do try to work a full day just so I'm there to support my coworkers if needed. But there's times that I don't work during the day, but I'll be working until 11 o'clock at night just because I focus better at night.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
with the CEO understanding that and understanding how my mind works and how my focus works and how if I start something, I'm going to finish it and I'm going to get my job done. I don't care what work. You're doing what I want to do. And I told him that I'm going to buy a cargo van, convert it into a camper, and I'm going to take my dog on road trips and I'll work from the van. And he's like, okay,
Yeah.
I don't care where you are. You get your job done,
Yeah.
you get my results, and you're going to do what you got to do. Live the life you want.
We'll have to talk afterward because I'll be in Texas for the fall, winter. So we'll have to connect.
That's a good time to come.
And you can check out how this all works. So
Absolutely.
anyway, I kind of want to go back to your weekend of anxiety where you lay this on the table and you're thinking, oh my God, what did I do? What was the reaction of family and friends? Were they supportive? Did they think that you had lost your mind? I mean, where was it?
I think my parents kind of they hit their quota of thinking I lost my mind at the point when I told them I'm moving to Texas. So at that point, they had come to terms with me being out of my mind. And I think I kind of get it from my mother. So like she can only blame herself at this point. My first phone call was to my parents, and I'm driving home. I had a 1:00 meeting with my boss, and that's when they let me go. And they're like, you can for the rest of the day, like we'll pay you through the rest of the month. And if you want to come back and finish projects like next week, you're welcome to. I'm like, why would I do that? Like, these aren't personal projects. This is for you. If you don't want me to work for you, I'm not going to finish them. You guys have fun. So I'm on my way home. It's 1 p.m. I call my mom and I'm in tears. Like I barely speak. And it was more of shock than anything. I didn't see it coming. I had never been let go from a job. And of course, my dad's first reaction is, if you need rent money, you let us know. Like they have all my safety net. Whether I use them or not, it's just they're there. And knowing that has always been just a point of comfort for me. And then they had a little bit of a rant about them and how dare they do this like a week of Christmas and all of that. But they were supportive, and they had known that I had this job offer on the side that I had turned down, and they encouraged me to call and, just at least see if we could work something out. And my mother is, I would say she's the I told you so type. She's also the everything happens for a reason type. And if she has not said to me every maybe 4 hours since this happened in December, but I told them what happened. I told them that I'll call my now boss and see what we can do. And my mom's like, it's going to work out. Everything happens for a reason. You were miserable there. It wasn't for you. Let's see what happens. So I get home. I was at an apartment complex that I only lived in for a few months in a state I didn't really know anyone. And I get to the dog park, and one of my neighbors is there, and like I'd had a few conversations with her. We were kind of friends, but not really. And I just start crying to her, like, I don't know what I'm doing. And then I make the call and I tell them what, like, I rehearsed it. I like wrote down what I wanted and how we can make it work, kind of the give and take. And I make the phone call, and he said, let me talk to the executive council and I'll have a job offer you today. So then I hang up, take a breath, clear my head, out job applications just in case. And Monday morning, I don't have a job. So instead of going to work, I take my dog and I go on a hike. And it's actually the first date with a guy from a dating app, because I'm 25 in a new city and that's what we do. So we're hiking through just a park downtown, and Austin is amazing for parks and nature. And I'm just waiting. And I told him, like, I'm going to need to take a phone call at some point because I might be getting a job today. And he texted me a thumbs up emoji, and that was it. It's like, you're really going to have to give me a little of that. Can I get some details? It's still in the meeting. It's good news. I'll call you later. So we're hiking. I have my dog with me, and it's a beautiful day. It was middle of December, and it was like 75 degrees and sunny, and it just gave me such a, like, kind of just renewed my appreciation for the city and this weather. And I moved to escape winter because I do not do well in the cold. So I'm just like basically in my element. I'm so happy. And then I get the call, and all he says is, it was unanimous. Like, you have it. Everyone wants you. Like, this job was made for you. And I was like, yeah, thank you. I knew this. But inside I'm like crying and freaking out.
Yeah.
So then I called my mom, and she is at a ladies' lunch with some of her friends. She lived in Florida now at like a 55 and older community. And she's like, hold on, let me put you on speaker. And she makes me tell them everything, like all of her friends at lunch. And I'm like, I don't know who these people are. I just hear voices like, I knew you would do it. I knew it. And I'm like, I don't know who knew it. Thank you. I didn't even know it. How did you know it? But yeah, no, they definitely thought I was crazy at first. And then they've just kind of figured out that if I decide I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it, whether they support it or not. So they might as well. And she was right. Everything happens for a reason, and she'll never let me forget she was right.
Well, it's great you've got that level of support, but it's also, I'm glad you talked about the anxiety, because I think, people think, oh, well, it was easy for you to do that. You had to get yourself together and take a chance and do that, and it wasn't easy. So I'm really glad that you You talked about that. I would really
Yeah,
love to know, as somebody who loves to travel, I got to know about all these adventures and whether, is this like from as a child, did you always have this sense that you wanted to travel and do all this? So talk about that, you're Sarah as the adventurer.
yeah. I honestly, I don't even know where it came from. My childhood was definitely different. I was raised on Long Island. We were a boating family, so from a really young age, I was taking boat trips every summer. We were going to just the surrounding states, like we went to Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Connecticut, New Jersey, like all just basically as close to where we were because boat trips are slow and gas is expensive, so we didn't go too far. But my father, who is boating is his life. Like I always say, like I have salt water in my veins. We are a water family. He always talks about when I was 5 years old. I drove the boat under all of these bridges down the Hudson River. We had done a trip up to Albany and back, and just little me. I mean, I'm small now, so I was real small then. 5 years old, driving the boat. I was the youngest person to ever get my license from Peconic Bay Power Squadron. I was 7 years old when I got my license from
Wow.
it. I was raised kind of in that environment where we're on the go, we're exploring and all that. So that's probably where it came from, I'm guessing. But I didn't really start traveling, like really traveling until probably college. One of my aunts took me and my mom and my sister on my first Euro trip when I was 20. We did a tour for, I think it was Spain, France, and Italy. I did, I think it was 12 cities in 12 days. It was crazy. And that was my first time really doing Europe. And I loved it, but because it was with family and I wasn't by myself, I didn't get to do what I wanted to do. I got to do what we all agreed to do. And I was like, this is good, but I could do this better. So when I was 22, I believe, it was actually on this day 2 years ago. So I was 23. I took my first solo trip and I went to Ireland by myself for a week. And that just solidified it. That was, I'm on my own. I can do whatever I want. I don't have to be on anyone's schedule. I don't have to sleep if I want to. And I didn't. I think the first day I was probably up for about 50 something hours. And I I get to Ireland, I wake up there, I get off the plane, and I'm just like, I'm filled with this just feeling of this is right. Like, this is what I want. And I just have this constant feeling that I need to be somewhere that I'm not. Um, so I did Ireland, loved it. I started my new tradition that my parents hate, which is I get tattoos when I go on big trips. So I got my first international tattoo in Ireland, which is its own story, and I don't think I need my parents to hear that one and probably watch this. Um, and so then a few months after that, I actually won a trip in a sweepstakes to Costa Rica, which no one actually wins those, and I swore it was a
Wow.
scam.
Wow.
And then a few months after that, I took a trip to Paris and Portugal, got my second international tattoo, which my parents don't like. Um, and it hasn't stopped. I think next year so far, I've planned a road trip from Texas to Alaska with some friends of mine that are moving and invited me along to take one of the cars. I'm planning a bachelorette party in Arizona and then the weddings in California. So I'm doing as this country as I can since COVID's kind of screwing up international.
Yes.
And as soon as this ends, I'm trying to do a whole tour of South America. I want to go back to Europe. I want to see Asia. Um, there's so much in this world to see, and there's so many other cultures, so many other ideologies, and so many sites and tattoo artists that I haven't seen yet. And I think just staying in one place, like if that's what you want, that's what you want. But it's never been for me. I've never been the live and die in one zip code kind of person. And I'm just my to-do list reads like the atlas. Like, I want to see everything that there is possible to see, and I'm just insatiably curious, and this is the way that I guess I've kind of channeled that. So just seeing what I can, going everywhere that I can, and doing it on my own terms, even if it means I have to go by myself.
Well, I want you to talk about that because there are many women who would never do what you've just done, would never do it by themselves. They've got to go with somebody. And
Yeah.
was that something that was scary the first time you went on your own, or are you just so comfortable that you felt you could handle everything?
Oh, I'm 20 something. Like, nothing had hurt me. What are you talking about? No, it was not an easy decision to come by, and it wasn't even a decision that was necessarily my own. I was in a relationship with, it was a really bad relationship, but in my mind it was perfect and everything was great, and I kind of forgot to, you know, I ignore red flags with enthusiasm, basically. So that's what I was doing. And I had booked a trip for me and my then boyfriend to go to Greece, which was my dream. That's where I always wanted to go. Santorini is like my dream destination, still is to this day. I haven't been yet. And we were going to get engaged, at least in my mind. I don't know if you knew that, but if you take me to Greece and you don't propose to me, we're breaking up. Basically was my mindset. So I booked this trip, and within a few weeks of booking it, I booked it about a year in advance, which is always a great idea. Um, and it was going to be for our next anniversary and all that. And then we broke up about 2 weeks after booking it. And I booked it with a travel company. So it was a tour company that they book everything for you. They drive you around and everything, which I thought was a good way that, like, I didn't know what I was doing. I made a PowerPoint for him to, like, this is what I want to do. This is how we're going to do it. Here's a PowerPoint. He didn't even open it. But we booked it through a travel company. So when we broke up, I called them and I canceled it. But I don't think I could have gotten a full refund unless I just rebooked something else. So I was like, okay, well, I have the money I put towards it. I have the money put towards it. I'm going to go somewhere on my own. I'm going to do something for myself because I had put so much into a relationship that got me nowhere. And I was in a really bad space. It was a mess. It was not a good situation. And I was like, how can I make the best out of this? So the thought of going by myself was scary. And I called a few friends, asked if they wanted to do it. But I was 22 when I booked it, and 22-year-olds don't have money to travel. It was through a company, so it was more expensive than it had to be. And no one was able to do it. No one could have the time off. So I was like, well, why should that stop me? Like, this is what I want to do. Why should other people not be able to do it stop me? So I started thinking about where I could go. And I was definitely cognizant of the fact that I was a young girl, didn't have that much travel experience, and I was going by myself. So I chose a destination that would probably be the safest bet. So I went to Ireland, which was a great decision. Amazing country if you've never been. And I stayed with the travel company booking it, specifically so that they would handle the details. I didn't want to have to book my hotels and my flights, and I definitely didn't want to have to get a taxi to drive me 8 hours across the country to get to different cities. I just pictured myself being in a Liam Neeson movie. So I booked it through the company, and I just skipped everything that they had planned. Basically, I didn't do anything. I just was like, drop me off in the city. I'll see you on Sunday, and never saw them. So I just kind of did my own thing and saw exactly what I wanted to see. I ended up making some really great friends. I might even go visit them soon. And one of them I got to use with. And I just did all of this. I got to see what I wanted. I had my own to-do. I didn't have to be on anyone's schedule. I landed at, I think, 6 o'clock in the morning after not having slept the night before. And I get to the hotel where everyone else is like, okay, we're going to go sleep off this flight. over the jet lag, I'm like, can you have a taxi at the door by the time I put my bag in my room? And that first day, I got out the bus schedule. I went out to the coast. I found this park I wanted to see in Galway um, that was dedicated to organ donors because that's always been something that was close to my heart. And even more so now, I found out yesterday that the man who's the reason that this is so important actually passed away. So I was able to see that park and kind of get all the emotions. I went to the first ever Clotter ring shop of the guy who designed the Clotter ring, which is that famous Ireland ring with the hands, the heart, and the crown. And I found all these restaurants I wanted to eat at. And by the time I got back to my hotel at like 11 o'clock at night, I hadn't slept in 40 something hours. And everyone else is like, oh, you did things? We were sitting at the hotel bar. Like, yeah, no, I saw the entire city.
Yeah.
And just being able to do that and just understanding that, like, I did everything I wanted to do. I did it on my schedule. And I even have pictures to prove it because I brought a tripod, and who needs a photographer when you have a remote? So there was nothing that I couldn't have done just because I was by myself. And I felt safe because I was in a country where everyone's nice, and I needed to ask directions from someone random on the street. They would give me 4 different options depending on which view I wanted to see. Like, they were that level of nice. So I never felt like I was in danger.
Yeah. Yeah.
I probably should have at some point, like when I was lost on a cliffside with no phone. But another story where my parents don't have to hear.
Yeah. So I've got a question for you. So you're young, and a lot of you've had these experiences. So you had a not so good relationship, and you took that and it happened for a reason, right? and
Of course.
and you took that
That's my mother.
yes, and you traveled on your own. And a lot of women, younger women, it's like we do so many things to please other people, especially to please a guy.
Oh, yeah.
And so do you feel like those experiences, and you also mentioned that you just kind of ignored the red flags. Are you better in tune to the red
Enthusiastic.
flags now?
I would like to say yes. I have some friends that would probably say no. Um, I'm doing my best. Nobody's perfect. Um, yeah, I was definitely able to learn a lot, and I take chances, but I do them kind of with past experiences in mind. I'm sorry, I forgot the question already.
Well, part of it is like, have you grown in your own self-confidence so that you feel like you can prioritize your own needs rather than bending and being molded by others?
Absolutely. When I was in that same relationship, it was, I just remember being told that he wants to move to wherever his job is, and I have to go with him or we're done. But then also, I wanted to move, and that wasn't an option. So I decided, okay, if this is what it's going to be, this is what it's going to be. I'm not going to look for jobs outside of the Baltimore, DC area. And then I was told DC was too far, and I was like, so I can't do anything. I can't move from this like one little of jobs that have like barely any openings. And it was kind of in that moment that I started to think outside the boy and realize that I'm the one that has these goals. I'm the one who has dreams that are a lot bigger than this one city. And if that's not okay, then this isn't okay. When you're young and like I had no responsibilities, I had no kids. I mean, I had a boyfriend, but he was starting to fade. And I had no pets, I had nothing. And I was like, why am I sticking myself in this box and knowing that like my future isn't shaping out the way I want it to just because I want to make someone else happy? Like I wasn't happy. And it's kind of started to hit me that this is my life. And if I want to be selfish with my life, and as long as I'm not hurting other people, I'm not putting anyone else in danger, I'm not doing anything that would negatively impact anyone else, then it shouldn't matter to anybody else. Like, I'm going to do what makes myself happy and what puts me in, basically in path to live the life I want to live.
There should be no guilt in enjoying your life. I'm going to ask you a tough question. Okay, so let's say it's 10 years from now. We come back and redo this interview. Where are you? What are you doing? What are your dreams?
That is a tough question. Well, it's something that, so I became the director of marketing at 24. And I told the CEO that I want to be CMO by 27. That has been pushed. He's like, that's not a thing. No one is CMO at 27. So you're going to have to get over that. So I think we've at this point settled for 30. So at that point, he better watch this and he better be marking his calendar for my 30th birthday, July 1st, 2025. So that's, I mean, professionally, that's where I would like to be. I love what I'm doing. I work for a financial advising firm, and most of my job is putting out free resources for people to help get their finances in order and understand finance. And I'm able to basically turn my career into a passion project. And I'm building online courses that are free for high school kids so they can understand finance, and just doing as much as I can to help those that don't have the resources to help themselves, even if they can't afford to pay someone else to do it. Like, this is free. Like, I'm only doing this because I want you to succeed, which I love that I'm able to do that. And like, being able to combine a passion and a career is everyone's dream, I would think. So professionally, that's my answer. I'm basically on track to do exactly what I want to do with my life, which is amazing, especially being 25. But with everything else, I don't know. I would love to be traveling. I would love to not be tied down to a place. I mean, I moved out of my home, quote unquote, when I was 18, but that was just four walls and a front door. My home is wherever my parents are, so that moves around too. So I don't really have ties to any location.
Yeah.
So I don't care where I am. I want to be on the road somewhere. I have my dog with me because he's right next to me right now, and he's my baby and my best friend. And if I'm married, awesome. If I have kids, awesome. But being that I don't have that now, I'm not planning my life around kind of the what ifs. All I know is that I am myself. I know what I want. I know what I want to do. And I'm shaping a life that's who I am right now. And I'll just kind of alter it as I go. And I'm not going to build myself based on what I want. I'm going to build my life based on who I am. So that's what we're doing.
That is terrific. I have a feeling we could talk for hours. You have just one final, like, closing piece of advice for other young women who, see your life and maybe they'd like to travel, maybe they'd like to, do something gutsy, but they're a little bit afraid to step out.
Yeah, I think at one point I had realized that I say one day a lot. Like, someday I'll travel, or one day I'll do this, one day I'll do that. And it hit me one day that, like, this is one day. So I stopped thinking in that way. And it was, instead of saying one day, it was just, I'm going to do this. And I took my solo trip. I took more trips. I moved to Texas. I got a job I loved. I adopted a dog. I started learning how to snowboard. I got the tattoos. I did all of the stuff that I used to, I guess, push off. Because when you set things as kind of, you set them as goals, but if you don't have a deadline, they're just wishes. Like, they're not, it's not a goal until you actually set out a plan to do it. So I guess my one piece of advice is stop thinking about the future and start living it. If you save for a rainy day, like, what happens if that rainy day doesn't come? Something that my boss always says is, he who dies with the most toys still dies, so you might as well start playing with them. I work in personal finance, but I barely save money because I spend it all traveling because I can do that now. Not the best piece of advice right there. I'm not a financial advisor. Here's my asterisk, but I stopped planning for tomorrow and I started living for today.
Okay.
And doing that has led me to kind of form the path that I want for my future while living the life that I want for, if that makes sense.
That's perfect. So we're going to close out now. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Sarah. This has been, I'm going to say, entertaining. So I've really enjoyed the conversation, and best of wishes to you. I know you're gonna knock it dead for the forever. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And so, folks, we'll be
Thank
back.
you for having me.
Thank you. We'll be back next week for another Gutsy Woman profile. So that's it for today. Bye-bye.